The massive chamber stretched out like a metal canyon. Thousands of seats filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some had wings, others had tentacles. Some glowed with their own light, while others floated in tanks of strange gas. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful group in known space. Elena Vasquez stood at the human-speaking platform. Her dark hair was pulled back tight and her uniform showed no wrinkles. She had been Earth's voice for 3 years. 3 long years of talking, arguing, and getting nowhere. Behind her sat the human delegation. 12 of Earth's best diplomats, scientists, and military officers. They all looked tired. Elena felt tired too. But today was different. Today was the end. Council members, Elena began, her voice carrying across the huge room. For 3 years, humanity has brought evidence to this chamber. Evidence of crimes. Evidence of suffering. Evidence that demands action. She pressed a button. Holographic images filled the air above the chamber. Pictures of slave camps on distant worlds. Videos of children working in mines. Reports showing how whole planets had been stripped bare of resources. The hegemony takes young beings from their families, Elena said. They call it economic partnership. We call it slavery. They destroy entire worlds for metals and crystals. They call it resource management. We call it murder. A sound like breaking glass came from the crystal beings called the Veltar. They did not like being challenged. Neither did the gas creatures floating in their sphere ships. The old bird-like Zephyrians ruffled their silver feathers but said nothing. Counselor Zethmore rose from his crystal throne. His body looked like living diamond, beautiful and cold. When he spoke, his voice rang like a bell. Young species always struggle with the complexities of galactic civilization, he said. What you call slavery, we call guided development. What you call destruction, we call efficient resource allocation. Your emotions cloud your judgment. Elena had heard this before. Always the same words. Always the same excuses. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species represented here. Most stayed quiet. They were afraid to speak against the powerful ones. Let me show you what guided development looks like, Elena said. New images appeared. A water world where the oceans were being drained. Fish like people dying on dry land while massive machines sucked away their seas. Another world where insect-like beings were forced to live in tiny boxes while robots did all the thinking for them. The Merlandi have lived in their oceans for 1,000,000 years, Elena said. Now you want to take their water to cool your factories. The Kithara built great cities and art. Now you want them to be mindless workers who follow orders without thinking. Progress requires sacrifice, said another council member. This one was from the gas beings. Lower species must adapt or step aside. Elena felt anger burning in her chest, but she kept her voice calm and steady. Lower species? You mean species that cannot defend themselves. You mean species that trusted you to be fair. She walked closer to the center of the chamber. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. 3 years ago, we came here with hope, she said. We thought the Galactic Council stood for justice. We thought it protected the weak and guided the strong. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some sounded angry. Others sounded worried. Today we vote on Resolution 4471, Elena continued. This resolution would end forced labor across the galaxy. It would stop the destruction of inhabited worlds. It would give every species the right to choose its own path. She paused and looked around the vast room. So many eyes staring back at her. So many different kinds of beings. But she could see the fear in most of them. Fear of standing up to the powerful ones. All in favor of Resolution 4471, called the council speaker. Elena raised her hand. So did the human delegation behind her. In the far corners, 2 small species also raised whatever they used for hands. That was all. All opposed. The rest of the chamber lit up with raised appendages, glowing crystals, and pulsing lights. 847 votes against. 3 votes for Elena stood there for a long moment. She had known this would happen. But seeing it still hurt. All these beings choosing to look away from suffering. Choosing comfort over justice. She turned to face Counselor Zethmore directly. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council, she said clearly. Starting right now. The chamber exploded with noise. Creatures chittering, humming, and roaring in dozens of languages. But Elena was not finished. We will no longer be part of this system, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Any species that wants real partnership will find our borders open. As for the rest of you, you have made your choice. Counselor Zethmore's crystal form flared brighter. You cannot survive without us mammals, he said. You control some trade routes, yes. You have some clever technology, but you are still young and weak. You need the protection and wisdom of older species. Elena smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We have learned much from older species, she said. We learned that power without justice is just bullying. We learned that age without wisdom is just stubbornness. Most importantly, we learned that some systems are too broken to fix. She gestured to her delegation. They began packing their materials and datapads. You will return, Zethmore said. When your ships are attacked by pirates, when your colonies fail, when your people starve, you will come back and beg for readmission. Elena stopped walking and turned back one last time. We will not return to this, she said. If you want to talk to humanity again, you will need to build something worthy of talking to. Something that values life over profit. Something that protects the weak instead of exploiting them. She looked at the smaller species in the far seats. The ones who had voted with humanity. Their representatives looked scared but determined. Our borders are open, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. To any species that believes in freedom. To any people who think all thinking beings deserve respect. To anyone tired of being told that injustice is just the way things are. The human delegation walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. As they reached the doors, Elena heard whispers starting behind them. Worried voices speaking in dozens of languages. She did not look back. Outside the chamber, Elena's assistant ran up to her. Ambassador, the council is demanding an immediate meeting. They want to discuss terms for readmission. Elena shook her head. There are no terms. We are done with them. But the trade routes, the assistant said. The mining contracts. The defense agreements. If we close our borders, the economic impact will be massive. Elena stopped walking and looked at the young woman. The economic impact will be massive for them too. Maybe more massive than they think. She started walking again, faster now. She had a lot of work to do. Ships to recall. Colonies to protect. And messages to send to species that might want something better than what the council offered. Behind them, the council chamber buzzed with angry and worried voices. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had said no to them and walked away. They had no idea what was coming next. 6 months had passed since Elena walked out of the council chamber. Earth's orbital stations buzzed with activity like disturbed beehives. Ships arrived and departed every hour. But these were not the usual trade vessels. Elena stood in the command center of Unity Station watching the displays. She was no longer Ambassador Vasquez. Now she was director of the Human Independence Coalition. The title felt heavy, but she wore it well. Report, she said to Captain Morris, her military advisor. All human ships have returned from Council space, Morris said. We've closed 37 hyperspace routes that we controlled. The Council fleets are having trouble moving between sectors. Elena nodded. The hyperspace routes were humanity's biggest advantage. Earth scientists had discovered how to create stable passages through folded space. Without these routes, travel between distant stars took months instead of days. What about the colonies? Elena asked. All 37 human colonies have voted to leave the Council system, reported Dr. Sarah Chen, the Coalition's new science advisor. But we have bigger news. The refugees. Elena turned to the main screen. It showed dozens of ships approaching human space. But these were not human vessels. She saw the flowing curves of Merlandi waterships, the geometric patterns of Kithara hive craft. Ships from species she barely recognized. The Merlandi arrived first, Dr. Chen explained. The Council approved something called ocean optimization for their homeworld. They want to drain the seas to build cooling systems for industrial planets. Elena felt sick. The Merlandi were fish-like people who had never lived anywhere but in water. Without their oceans, they would die. How many? Elena asked. 12 million Merlandi on the first wave of ships, Dr. Chen said. They're requesting asylum. The display changed to show another group of approaching vessels. The Kithara abandoned their homeworld yesterday, Dr. Chen continued. The Council decided their species thinks too much. They want to install neural dampeners to make them better workers. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. The Kithara were brilliant. They built cities that looked like crystal flowers and created art that could make people cry from its beauty. The thought of them being turned into mindless drones made her angry. We take them all, Elena said. Every refugee who wants freedom. Director, Captain Morris said carefully, our resources are stretched thin. Housing 12 million aquatic beings alone will require massive infrastructure changes. Elena looked at him steadily. Then we build the infrastructure. We find the resources. We make it work, Dr. Chen smiled. I've already started working on integration protocols. The Merlandi have offered to share their water purification technology. The Kithara want to help design new ship systems. They're not just refugees, Director. They're allies. Elena walked to the observation deck. Through the transparent metal, she could see the endless stream of ships. Each one carried beings who had chosen freedom over safety, who had given up everything they knew to escape oppression. What's the situation in Council space? She asked. Captain Morris pulled up new displays. Not good for them. The Galactic Trade Network is collapsing. Without our hyperspace routes, shipping costs have gone up 4 times. Some sectors are completely cut off. The Veltar crystal gardens are dimming, Dr. Chen added. They need rare earth elements from our mining colonies. Without those shipments, their cities are starting to die. Elena felt no satisfaction from this news. People were suffering. But maybe that suffering would make the Council reconsider their choices. Any word from the Council? Elena asked. They're demanding we reopen the trade routes, Captain Morris said. They claim we're violating galactic law by restricting free passage. Elena laughed, but it was not a happy sound. They want to talk about law? What law protects the Merlandi? What law stops them from enslaving the Kithara? A new voice spoke from behind them. No law protects the weak when the strong write the rules. Elena turned to see a tall blue-skinned woman approaching. This was Merlandi Ambassador Flowing Current, one of the first refugees to reach human space. Ambassador, Elena said with respect, how are your people settling in? Better than we hoped, Flowing Current replied. Her voice sounded like water over stones. Your people work very hard to make us comfortable. But we do not want just comfort. We want to help build something better. What do you mean? Elena asked. Flowing Current gestured to the refugee ships outside. All these peoples, they did not come here just to hide. They came here to fight, to build a new way for the galaxy. Elena felt something stirring in her chest. Hope, maybe. The Council has sent messages to neutral species, Captain Morris reported. They're demanding that everyone choose sides. Either support the Council or be treated as rebels. That will backfire, Dr. Chen said. Forcing people to choose sides makes them think about which side is right. Elena nodded. What about our defenses? All colonies are protected, Captain Morris said. We've shared our new shield technology with the refugee fleets. But, Director, the Council has much bigger fleets than us. Elena walked back to the command displays. The refugee ships were still arriving. Each one represented people who had chosen hope over fear. They have bigger fleets, she agreed. But we have something they don't. What's that? Captain Morris asked. We have people who believe in what they're fighting for, Elena said. The Council's soldiers fight because they're ordered to. Our people fight because they choose to. Dr. Chen's communication device beeped. She read the message and her face went pale. Director, we're getting reports from the Andromedan sector. The Scalyx people have been enslaved. The Andromedans are... They're angry. Elena raised an eyebrow. The Andromedans had been allies of the Veltar for over 1,000 years. They were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. How angry? Elena asked. They've broken all ties with the Council, Dr. Chen said, reading more messages. They're demanding the immediate release of all Scalyx people. Captain Morris whistled softly. If the Andromedans turn against the Council, the galaxy changes, Elena finished. Dr. Chen, send a message to the Andromedan leadership. Tell them our borders are open to them too. Already done, Dr. Chen said with a smile. Elena looked out at the refugee ships again. 6 months ago, she had walked away from a corrupt system. Now that system was starting to crack. Species were choosing sides. The powerful were discovering that their power had limits. Her communication device buzzed. A message from Earth Command. Director, the Council is mobilizing military forces. They're calling it Enforcement of Galactic Stability. Intelligence suggests they're planning to blockade human space. Elena read the message twice. Then she looked at Captain Morris. Are our defenses ready? As ready as they can be, Morris replied. But Director, this could mean war. Elena looked at Ambassador Flowing Current. The Merlandi woman nodded slowly. Some things are worth fighting for, Flowing Current said. Freedom is one of them. Elena turned back to the displays showing the refugee fleets. Millions of beings who had given up everything for a chance at something better. They were counting on humanity to protect them, to give them hope. Then we prepare for war, Elena said quietly. But we fight it our way. We protect the innocent. We offer hope to the oppressed. And we show the galaxy that there is a better way. Outside the station, more ships arrived, more refugees seeking freedom. The coalition was growing stronger every day. The council had made their choice. Now they would learn the price of that choice. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Elena stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching a planet burn in the distance. Karak Prime had been an industrial world for 300 years. Now it was a battlefield. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood beside her, his face grim. The Cathani are holding the northern cities, he reported. But the Council forces are bombing civilian areas. Elena watched the flashes of light on the planet's surface. Each flash meant explosions. Each explosion meant people dying. The Cathani were not warriors. They were miners and factory workers who had decided they would rather die than be relocated to make room for machines. What started this? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. The Council decided Karak Prime would be more efficient without most of its people, Dr. Chen said from her station. They wanted to move 90% of the Cathani population to smaller worlds. The planet would become fully automated. Elena felt the familiar anger burning in her chest. Efficiency. Always about efficiency. The rebellion had started when the first transport ships arrived to take Cathani families away from their homes. The transport ships were still burning in Karak's upper atmosphere. The Council claims the Cathani are terrorists, Captain Rodriguez said. They're asking for galactic support to restore order. Elena almost laughed. Terrorists? For refusing to leave their own planet? She looked at the tactical display. 17 other worlds in the same sector were also in rebellion. The pattern was the same everywhere. The Council would announce optimization plans for a world. The people would resist. The Council would send military forces to restore order. But something had changed since humanity left. The rebellions were not being crushed as easily as before. Captain, what's the status of our humanitarian mission? Elena asked. Medical supplies and defensive equipment have been delivered to the Cathani resistance, Rodriguez replied. But the Council blockade is trying to stop all ships from reaching the planet. Elena nodded. Then we remove the blockade. Director? Dr. Chen said carefully. That means fighting Council ships directly. It means war. Elena looked at her reflection in the bridge window. She looked older than her 45 years. The weight of leadership had aged her quickly. Dr. Chen, show me the files on the Cathani, Elena said. The main screen filled with images. Cathani families in their underground cities. Children playing in crystal gardens they had grown over generations. Art carved into the walls of their homes. Cities that were beautiful and functional and alive. The Council wants to replace all of this with automated mining equipment, Elena said. No people. No families. No culture. Just machines digging holes. She turned to face her bridge crew. How many Cathani civilians have died in the bombing? Latest reports say 4,000, Dr. Chen said quietly. Including children. Elena closed her eyes. 4,000 people dead because they refused to abandon their homes. Captain Rodriguez, take us to the blockade, she ordered. It's time to show the Council that some lines cannot be crossed. The Defiance moved toward the Council fleet. Elena could see them on the tactical display. 12 heavy cruisers and twice as many smaller ships. The Council had sent a strong force to crush this rebellion. Council fleet is demanding we turn back, the communications officer reported. They claim we're violating galactic law by interfering with internal Council business. Elena took the communications microphone. This is Director Elena Vasquez of the Human Independence Coalition. We are delivering humanitarian aid to civilian populations under attack. Stand aside. The reply came quickly. Human ships will withdraw immediately or be fired upon. This is your only warning. Elena looked at Captain Rodriguez. Captain, are our new shields ready? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Dr. Wright's quantum field generators are online. The Council has never seen anything like them. Elena nodded. All ships engage defensive measures. We're going through. The Defiance and its escort ships moved forward. The Council fleet opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts and particle beams lit up space. But when the energy weapons hit the human ships, something strange happened. The attack simply stopped. The energy was absorbed by shimmering fields around the human vessels. Council weapons are ineffective, Rodriguez reported. Quantum shields are holding at full strength. Elena smiled for the first time in days. Dr. Wright's team outdid themselves. Return fire, but target weapons and engines only. We're not here to kill anyone. The battle was short. The Council ships had never faced defensive technology like this. Their weapons could not penetrate the quantum shields, while human weapons easily disabled their systems. Within an hour, the blockade was broken. Council ships fled toward the outer system, their weapons destroyed and their engines damaged. Send a message to the planet, Elena ordered. Tell the Kethani that medical aid is coming. And tell them they're not alone. As human ships began landing on Karak Prime, Elena received an urgent message from Earth. Director, you need to see this, Dr. Chen said, forwarding the transmission to the main screen. The image showed crowds of people on dozens of worlds, but these were not human worlds. These were Council species protesting in their own streets. It started on Andromeda Prime, Dr. Chen explained. The Andromedans saw footage of our battle at Karak. They declared that the Council has lost its moral authority. Elena watched the images. Andromedans marching through their crystal cities, Zephyrians taking flight in massive flocks. Even some Veltar were leaving their crystal towers to join the protests. The Andromedans have formally broken their alliance with the Council, Dr. Chen continued. They're requesting membership in our coalition. Elena felt hope growing in her chest. The Andromedans were one of the galaxy's major powers. If they joined the coalition, what about the other species? Elena asked. The Zephyrians are debating in their councils. The gas beings are, well, it's hard to tell what they're thinking. But something big is happening. Captain Rodriguez walked over to Elena. Director, we're receiving a priority message from Councillor Zethmore himself. Elena raised an eyebrow. Put it through. The crystal being's image appeared on the screen. But he looked different. Cracks ran through his usually perfect surface, and his glow was dimmer. Director Vasquez, Zethmore said, his voice sounding strained. The Council demands that you cease your interference in internal affairs immediately. Elena studied his image. Counselor, I see your people are having some internal affairs of their own. Zethmore's cracks deepened. Temporary unrest. It will be controlled. Will it? Elena asked. Because from where I stand, it looks like your people are tired of being ruled by fear. Just like everyone else. You are destroying galactic stability, Zethmore said angrily. The old ways have kept peace for thousands of years. Elena shook her head. The old ways kept the powerful in power and the weak in chains. That's not peace, Counselor. That's oppression. She leaned forward. But I'll make you a deal. Stop the bombing of civilian populations. Stop the forced relocations. Stop treating thinking beings like property. Do that and we can talk. Zethmore's image flickered with rage. You dare make demands? You are nothing. A young species that has forgotten its place. Elena smiled coldly. Our place is standing with those who cannot stand for themselves. Our place is building something better than what you offer. The transmission ended abruptly. Elena turned to Captain Rodriguez. Captain, prepare the fleet. I think Counselor Zethmore is about to do something stupid. Rodriguez nodded. What do you want me to tell the coalition forces? Elena looked out at the planet below. Kethani families were already emerging from hiding as human medical teams landed. Hope was returning to their world. Tell them to get ready, Elena said. The Council is about to learn that some prices are too high to pay. The war began not with massive fleets clashing in space, but with silence. Every human ship in Council territory simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. The hyperspace routes they had used collapsed behind them, leaving Council forces stranded in their own space. Dr. James Wright stood in his laboratory deep under Earth's surface, watching displays that showed the quantum fabric of space itself. His hair had gone completely gray in the past year, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. But his work was finally complete. Status report, Elena said as she entered the lab. Wright looked up from his instruments. Every route is closed, Director. We've isolated the Council territories from each other and from neutral space. They can still travel, but it will take them months to go anywhere. Elena studied the displays. The galaxy looked different now. Instead of a connected web of hyperspace routes, there were scattered islands of space. The Council's empire had been broken into pieces. How long can we maintain this? Elena asked. As long as we need to, Wright replied. But it's not without cost. We're using enormous amounts of energy to keep the space barriers stable. Elena nodded. Everything had a price. What about our own movements? We can still create temporary routes for our ships, Wright explained. But only we know how to do it safely. Anyone else who tries to force through the barriers will be torn apart by quantum storms. Captain Rodriguez entered the laboratory, his face serious. Director, we're getting reports from Council Space. The isolation is having bigger effects than we expected. Elena followed him to the intelligence center. The walls were covered with screens showing different Council worlds. The Veltar crystal cities are failing, Rodriguez explained. Without regular shipments of rare minerals from the outer colonies, their power systems are shutting down. Elena watched images of the beautiful crystal towers going dark. She felt sad but not guilty. They chose this path. The Nethys Collective is having trouble too, Rodriguez continued. Their gas harvesting operations depended on atmospheric processors we designed. Without maintenance, the equipment is breaking down. Any word on civilian casualties? Elena asked. Dr. Chen joined them carrying data tablets. Food shortages are spreading across 12 core worlds. Agricultural colonies can't ship their products to the cities. Elena closed her eyes. People were suffering. Innocent people who had no choice in their leaders' decisions. Dr. Chen, prepare humanitarian aid packages, Elena ordered. Food, medicine, basic supplies. We'll find ways to get them to civilian populations. Even to Council worlds? Dr. Chen asked. Especially to Council worlds, Elena replied. We're not at war with their people. We're at war with their system. Rodriguez activated another display. The coalition is growing stronger. The Andromedans officially joined yesterday. So did the Kethani Federation and 12 smaller species. Elena smiled. How many members do we have now? 47 species, Dr. Chen said proudly. More requesting membership every day. Elena looked at the new coalition flag displayed on the main screen. It showed stars of different colors arranged in a circle, representing the equality of all member species. Any response from the council? Elena asked. Rodriguez's expression darkened. Councillor Zethmore has authorized something called targeted correction strikes against our shipping. He claims we're harboring galactic terrorists. Elena felt cold anger spreading through her. Show me. The screen changed to show the wreckage of a human transport ship. The vessel had been carrying medical supplies to a refugee camp. Now it was floating debris in space. Casualties? Elena asked quietly. 43 dead, Rodriguez said, including children from 3 different refugee species. Elena stared at the wreckage for a long moment. 43 innocent people murdered because they were traveling on human ships. Dr. Wright, she said without looking away from the screen. How quickly can we prepare for full-scale military operations? Wright checked his instruments. The quantum isolation fields are stable. We can open routes for our fleets anywhere we need them. Elena turned to face her staff. Record a message for galactic broadcast. Dr. Chen activated the recording systems. Elena stood straight, her face calm but her eyes burning with controlled fury. This is Director Elena Vasquez of the Human Independence Coalition, she began. 3 years ago, we offered the Galactic Council a choice. We asked them to choose justice over oppression. They refused. She paused, letting her words sink in. 2 years ago, we withdrew from their system rather than be part of organized cruelty. We offered partnership to any species that wanted freedom. Many accepted. The images behind her showed coalition member species working together, building new worlds, creating art and technology. 1 year ago, we defended innocent civilians who were being bombed for refusing to abandon their homes. We showed that there was another way. Now the images showed the battle at Carrick Prime, human ships breaking through council blockades to deliver aid. Today, the council murdered 43 innocent beings, including children. They claimed these people were terrorists. Their crime was traveling under the protection of species that believe in freedom. Elena stepped closer to the camera. We offered peace. We offered partnership. We offered hope. You chose violence against the innocent. Her voice grew colder. So be it. She gestured to Captain Rodriguez, who stepped into view. Captain Rodriguez will now explain what happens next, Elena said. Rodriguez looked directly into the camera. Any council military vessel that attacks civilian targets will be disabled or destroyed. Any council ship that threatens refugee populations will face coalition forces. Any attempt to harm innocent people will be met with immediate response. Elena took control again. To the peoples of council worlds, we say this. You are not our enemies. Your leaders chose this path, not you. Coalition aid ships will continue to bring food and medicine to your worlds. We will not let you suffer for your leader's mistakes. She paused again, her voice softening slightly. To the species still under council control, we say this. You have a choice. You can continue to accept oppression, or you can choose freedom. Our borders remain open to any being that wants something better. Elena looked directly into the camera one final time. To the council leadership, we say this. You created this war. You can end it. Stop the attacks on civilians. Stop the oppression of weaker species. Start building a system based on justice instead of fear. Do this and we will talk. Continue as you are and face the consequences. The recording ended. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. Director? Dr. Chen said gently. Once we broadcast this, there's no going back. It's a declaration of war. Elena looked at the image of the destroyed transport ship still displayed on one screen. She thought about the 43 people who would never go home again. She thought about the children who had died for the crime of seeking freedom. The war started when they murdered innocent people, Elena said. We're just acknowledging it. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. Orders, Director. Elena stood up, her decision made. Deploy the full coalition fleet. Establish protective zones around all refugee camps and civilian targets. If council forces want a war, they'll get one. She walked to the window that looked out at Earth's blue skies. But we fight it our way, she added. We protect the innocent. We offer hope to the oppressed. And we show the galaxy that some principles are worth any price. Outside, coalition ships began emerging from Earth's orbital shipyards. The war for the galaxy's future was about to begin. 3 years after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Counselor Zethmore stood alone in what had once been his crystal palace. The walls were cracked and dim. Through the broken ceiling, he could see fires burning in the city below. The Veltar hierarchy was collapsing. Younger crystal beings had risen against the old leadership, demanding change. They called themselves the New Light Movement and spoke of justice and equality. Words that Zethmore had once dismissed as foolish idealism. He touched a communication panel with one fractured appendage. The device flickered weakly to life. Status report, he demanded. The image of General Corthex appeared, but the military leader looked exhausted. Counselor, we've lost control of 70% of our territory. The Nethys Collective has split into 6 different factions. The Zephyrians have declared neutrality and sealed their borders. Zethmore felt cracks spreading deeper through his crystal body. What about our military forces? Scattered and demoralized, Corthex admitted. The Coalition's quantum weapons make our fleets nearly useless. We can't match their technology and we can't match their numbers anymore. Through his palace windows, Zethmore could see coalition ships in orbit around his homeworld. They had not attacked civilian targets. Instead, they dropped supplies for the refugee camps that had formed around every major city. Former council species who had chosen freedom over security. How many species have joined the coalition? Zethmore asked, though he dreaded the answer. 47 confirmed members, Corthex replied. 12 more have requested membership. Even some of our oldest allies are considering defection. Zethmore turned away from the window. His crystal throne had cracked in half during the latest protests. A fitting symbol for his crumbling empire. Sir? Corthex continued carefully. There's something else. We've received a transmission from the coalition. They're offering to talk. Zethmore's crystal form flared with weak light. Demanding our surrender, you mean? No, sir, Corthex said. They're offering negotiations. But with conditions. Zethmore laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Of course there are conditions. On the other side of the galaxy, Elena Vasquez stood in the Coalition's new council chamber. It was built on a space station between human and Andromedan space, designed by architects from 12 different species. The result was beautiful and strange. A building that looked like it could belong to no single species because it belonged to all of them. Representatives from 47 different species filled the chamber. Some sat in chairs, others floated in tanks, still others hung from the ceiling. But they all had equal voices in the coalition's decisions. The message has been sent, reported Ambassador Flowing Current of the Mirlandi. Counselor Zethmore has agreed to negotiations. Elena looked around the diverse chamber. 3 years ago, she had walked out of a council meeting in disgust. Now she was part of something she had never imagined possible. Are we all in agreement about the terms? Elena asked. Whisper, the Zephyrian defector who had joined the coalition months earlier, sang a harmony that translated as agreement. The Andromedan representative nodded his massive head. Even the newest members, former council species who had recently joined, showed their approval. The terms are non-negotiable, Elena said clearly. Complete end to forced relocations. Complete end to slave labor systems. Recognition of the right of all species to self-determination. And trials for those responsible for war crimes. Captain Rodriguez, now admiral of the coalition fleet, leaned forward. And if they refuse? Elena looked at him steadily. Then they can watch their empire continue to collapse while we build something better around them. 3 days later, Elena found herself sitting across from Counselor Zethmore in a neutral station between coalition and council space. The crystal being looked very different from the proud leader she had faced 3 years earlier. His body was cracked and dim, his movements slow and careful. "You have destroyed everything," Zethmore said without introduction. Elena studied his fractured form. "We destroyed a system built on oppression. That's not the same thing. Thousands of years of civilization," Zethmore continued. "Gone because you could not accept the natural order." Elena shook her head. "The natural order? You mean the strong exploiting the weak? That's not civilization, Counselor. That's barely better than barbarism." Zethmore's cracks deepened. "And what have you built to replace it? A coalition of rebels and refugees?" Elena smiled. "We've built something you never understood. A system based on cooperation instead of domination, where species work together because they choose to, not because they're forced to." She activated a holographic display showing coalition space. Dozens of worlds working together, sharing technology and culture. Former enemies had become allies. Former slaves had become leaders. "The Merlandi are cleaning the oceans of 12 different worlds," Elena said. "The Cathera are designing cities that blend perfectly with natural environments. The Andromedans are sharing their military technology to protect everyone, not just themselves." Zethmore looked at the display with something that might have been longing. "And you expect us to simply join this coalition after everything that has happened?" Elena leaned forward. "I expect you to choose. You can continue fighting a war you cannot win, watching your empire crumble piece by piece, or you can help us build something better. The terms you demand would mean the end of council authority," Zethmore said. "Yes," Elena agreed. The council as it existed was a system of oppression. It needed to end. Zethmore was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke again. "What guarantee do we have that the coalition will not simply become the new oppressor?" Elena gestured to the mixed species delegation waiting outside the meeting room. "Because power in the coalition is shared, not concentrated. Because our constitution guarantees the rights of every member species. Because we learned from the council's mistakes." She stood up and walked to the window that looked out at coalition ships and former council vessels docked together at the neutral station. "Look at them," Elena said. "Former enemies working side by side. Sharing food, sharing technology, sharing ideas. That's what civilization should look like." Zethmore moved slowly to join her at the window. "You really believe this can work? This dream of equality among species?" Elena nodded. "It already is working. The question is whether you want to be part of it or continue to be left behind by it." The crystal being was quiet for several minutes, watching the mixed crews working together outside. "The trials," he said finally. "You demand trials for war crimes," Elena's voice hardened. "Justice demands accountability. Those who ordered the murder of innocents must face consequences." "Including myself," Zethmore said. Elena looked at him directly. "That will be for coalition courts to decide. But yes, including you if evidence warrants it." Zethmore touched one of his larger cracks. "I am old and dying. My species measures age by the light we can produce. As you can see, I have little light left." Elena felt an unexpected moment of sympathy. "That doesn't excuse the choices you made." "No," Zethmore agreed. "It does not. But perhaps it is time for new choices." 2 weeks later, Elena stood again in a council chamber. But this time it was different. Representatives from the old council territory sat beside coalition members. Former enemies were trying to work together to build something new. The negotiations had taken days. Some former council species had refused to join and remained isolated in their own territories. Others had embraced the coalition's principles completely. Most fell somewhere in between, agreeing to trials and reforms in exchange for membership. Zethmore himself had accepted responsibility for his actions. He was under house arrest pending trial, but he had also provided evidence against other war criminals. His cooperation had helped bring justice to thousands of victims. Director Vasquez, called the new council speaker, a young Veltar named New Light who represented the reformed Crystal civilization. The vote is complete. Elena looked around the chamber. So many species, so many different kinds of beings, all working together. Resolution 5001 passes unanimously, New Light announced. The Galactic Coalition Constitution is hereby adopted by all member species. The chamber erupted in cheers, songs, harmonic vibrations, and other sounds of celebration from dozens of different species. Elena felt tears running down her face. 3 years ago, she had walked away from a corrupt system. She had never imagined it would lead to this moment. Director, Admiral Rodriguez said beside her. What are your orders? Elena looked at him with surprise. Orders? I don't have any orders, Admiral. We're not a military dictatorship. The Coalition Council will make decisions democratically from now on. Rodriguez smiled. Then what's your first recommendation as a Coalition Counselor? Elena looked out at the celebration around her. Former slaves were embracing former masters who had chosen reform. Species that had been enemies for centuries were planning joint exploration missions. The galaxy was healing. My recommendation, Elena said, is that we get back to work. We have a galaxy to rebuild, and we're going to do it right this time. She walked to the council podium one last time. 3 years ago, humanity walked away from these talks because we could not accept injustice, she said to the assembled beings. Today we return not as conquerors,